This is Rosetta Wood from Paleo Diet Magazine, and I'm here with Nell Stephenson from Paleoista.com. Nell, how are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, this is going to be very exciting. Today with Nell, we're going to be talking about the misconceptions of paleo. But first, Nell, what is Paleoista?
Paleoista is a word that I made up which combines paleo living with fashionista, the state of mind of wanting to be hip and modern and present. And the reason I did that was because I wanted people to understand that you can follow the principles of the paleo diet without having to be cavey or manly or masculine. That is one approach, but it's not the only approach. So I wanted to set the record straight and let people know that even the most feminine woman or anybody that's not interested in the caveman lifestyle can still reap all the benefits from this healthy way of eating.
Okay, how can paleo be done in a modern way?
Well, there's no need to feel that it's not a modern diet, because if you think about the principles of paleo, they're very simple. It's basically just eating a balance of fresh produce, lots of local organic vegetables and some fruit, along with healthy proteins like wild fish, free-range meats, grass-fed, free-range poultry and grass-fed meat, and healthy fats like avocado and olive oil and coconut oil. So if you think about the message that we're sending out, which is just that you should eat a lot of balanced, healthy foods and nothing processed and packaged, it's actually just a common sense way of eating.
Okay, before we start with the misconceptions, let's talk about the Ironman triathlon you did. How did you get inspired to do this?
I've been racing iron distance triathlon for about 12 years. I did my first Ironman in 2001, and I usually do one or two each year. And the reason I started doing triathlon was because I wanted a reason to do exercising that was fun rather than something that felt punitive, like weighing a certain weight or being a certain size. So I found that having a fun goal made it a lot more easy to stick to my exercise regime. Okay. And I started doing the iron distance because I was very inspired by seeing some of the challenged athletes competing in the race that were faced with very extenuating circumstances that were still able to complete the challenge nonetheless, and I found that very inspiring.
Okay. That sounds great. How did you find out about paleo?
I found out about paleo because I had stomach issues my whole life, and they got worse and worse, and they went from being mildly annoying to debilitating, and I was going to the hospital and seeking out specialists, and nobody was asking what I was eating. And even though I was eating what I thought was a healthy diet, in other words, I wasn't going to fast food, I wasn't eating McDonald's, I wasn't eating junk, I was still certainly eating my fair share of whole grains, dairy, I was definitely eating soy, and so I didn't understand at the time, I didn't know, because I was taught to believe that those things were all good for me. Those things were actually causing lots of GI distress. So I was online researching, and I found out people can have latent allergy to gluten, and that's what I had. And so when I cut it out and felt better in 3 days, that's all the evidence I needed that it wasn't a good thing for me to be eating.
Okay. Next, I'd like to talk about your paleo coaching. What is entailed in your paleo coaching and the paleo implementation program, and what is your background to do this?
Those are two very separate things. The Paleo Implementation Program is a program I worked on with Dr. Cordain about 3 or 4 years ago, and that was a program which people were able to sign up for after they'd read the Paleo Diet by Dr. Cordain and felt they needed a little help just learning how to implement it into their lifestyle. Separately, my Paleo Lifestyle Coaching is custom coaching, and it's for people who, it doesn't matter where they live because it's all done online, so I have clients all across the globe. And it's, some clients are athletes, some clients are not, it doesn't matter. It's basically one-on-one, hands-on, what do I eat, how much do I eat, what are some simple preparation tips, and it's built around your specific needs, whether it's travel, or athletics, or simply having a busy lifestyle and a busy family.
Now, on the misconceptions of paleo, what are all the given messages from paleo that tell us what are good foods to eat and how we should follow them?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the misconceptions, but the basics of paleo are we're not eating things that we're not genetically meant to be eating. So that includes all the grains, all the dairy and all the legumes, as well as refined sugar. I think some of the main misconceptions are things like people thinking that it's an all-protein diet, or they think it's the same as the Atkins diet, which isn't true, because as we discussed before, it's actually really balanced. It's about 40% carbohydrate, and the remaining 60% is equally divided between healthy fats and lean proteins. So that's one misconception, the idea that it's just high protein. Another one is that it's high fat. And while it's slightly higher in fat than what the MyPlate recommends, it's actually, again, it's a balanced diet. It's not high, it's just higher. So 30% of the calories are coming from fat. It's not as though it's an all-fat diet or anything like that. Another misconception is that people think that if they're not eating refined grain products, that they won't be getting enough fiber, and that as a result, their digestion will suffer. But fresh vegetables have about 7 to 11 times the amount of dietary fiber that grain products have. So if you're eating vegetables throughout the day, which you're supposed to do with paleo, you shouldn't have any issues with your digestion. Those are three of the really common ones, or that people sometimes don't understand what it is and they'll think it's a vegan diet. There's lots of misinformation out there, and unfortunately there's also a lot of misinformation on the web. So I would recommend, if people want to know the truth about it, the very most basic, most essential book in anybody's paleo library has got to be The Paleo Diet by Dr. Cordain. And then there's some other really good books I'd recommend. Of course, I hope people would buy my book as well, the Paleo Diet Cookbook, which I wrote with Dr. Cordain, as well as Paleoista. There's also great books on the market by Dr. S. Boyd Eden. Rob Wolf has great books, Mark Sisson. So there's a handful of really essential primers that people could read to get the truth about what it really is and what it isn't.
Okay. What are some other misconceptions that people may have about staying motivated?
Well, I think the difference with paleo compared to other diets, if you want to refer to it as a diet, is that it's not a diet with an end point. In other words, somebody might do one of the commercially available diets that have very restricted calories, or all the meals you're eating are from a frozen box or a mix or a protein shake or something like that. And those are all not sustainable. They might work for the short term, but it's not going to be something somebody's going to want to do for the rest of their life. So rather than have an approach where you say something like, I've got this big event that I'm attending in 6 weeks, I'm going to restrict calories, and I don't care, but as long as I weigh X by the date, that's fine, then I'm going to return to my poor eating habits, which made me overweight in the first place, or unhealthy in the first place. So rather than approach it that way, it's actually just a permanent lifestyle change, and when it's followed correctly, the foods are so plentiful and so balanced, and it's not lacking in anything, and if you start to enjoy the cooking part of it, there's really no reason to want to return, especially once you've identified feeling certain illnesses you might be having or symptoms with certain foods that are not paleo. And once you extract them and feel so much better, you really don't want to put them back in your diet.
Okay, that sounds great. That's very good information. I'm sure our readers will apply this to their personal life. I have another question for you. How can someone get involved in your coaching program, and where can they find you online?
My website is Paleoista.com. That's Paleoista.com. All my information is right there, my contact information, as well as information about the different types of download plans I offer as well. If somebody doesn't have the budget to do the custom plans, I have download plans which people can buy, and it's just point and click, and there's your 6 weeks of how to eat, simple preparation tips, and how to balance it out with everything else you're doing. So you can reach out to me. You can also follow me on Twitter at Nell Stephenson, and my Facebook page is Facebook/Paleoista.
Okay, thank you so much for this valuable information about the misconceptions of paleo. I'm sure our listeners and readers are going to enjoy this information. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rosetta, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.